Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am blessed with the presence of yet another fascinating young woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sophia Trevenna. I am originally from Canada, and I was around 30. I'm now 51. I was around 30 working as a mechanical engineer at one of the biggest tech companies in the world in the late 90s, helping set up a new power plant in Mexico right after we opened the borders to work freely between countries. And when I was working there, I discovered that we weren't bringing progress, in my opinion. We were exploiting the Mexican people and polluting their rivers with the factory we were building. I tried to do everything I could about it to make change, and it was impossible from inside that huge corporation. So I was begging the ethers one day of what to do with my life and solve this. And I started to receive signs and synchronicities that were beyond the coincidence. They were so improbable. My mathematical, scientific, engineering brain said 3 signs in one day telling me to quit my job means I need to quit my job. That's improbable. So I did it as an experiment. That was 20 years ago, and I started following intuition, signs, synchronicities, dreams, body knowing, shivers, as if they were real, to see what would happen. And I found out that they were real and that they did have guidance for me. I ended up within a few years actually being able to see my own spirit guides and angels, and they would tell me on a daily basis how to prepare for a meeting or what kind of focus to take in my life and what the next step was. I ended up listening to them and moving countries and living in Hawaii for 10 years, where I became a professor, one of the first of sustainability in the world, one of the first of social entrepreneurship. I created a co-working space to house the movement for sustainability that was building all around me, that I got an honor to lead from the University of Hawaii campus when I was teaching there and a student there. I completed my PhD, and I ended up focusing on what business would look like if it actually benefited people and the planet rather than exploited both. I ended up eventually leaving Hawaii after 10 years. I tried to go back from a conference on the mainland a number of times and kept getting, in accidents and put in the hospital. And I finally was like, I don't think I'm supposed to go back. The last 7 years of my life, I ended up living in 24 countries around the world and connected with about 150 CEO clients. And I was able to see their guides and angels and tell them incredible information so they could structure their world-changing ventures and design new divisions of some of the biggest organizations in the world trying to solve social and environmental problems. 2 years ago, I was guided to land in Los Angeles. Never lived in the US mainland in my life, but when I got here, there was so much creative energy and so much talent and support for the type of work I had been doing for 20 years that merged science and spirituality and intellect and intuition. Everyone seemed to get it here and know how to help me start to frame it and bring it to more people. So it's not just my one-on-one clients, to leaders I was working with. And since being here for 2 years, I've written 4 books and published them. The last one is called The Power of the Divine Feminine in Business. And it is based on my PhD research about how we can really do business different by letting the feminine back into areas that have really squeezed her out, mostly in business. And now I live here. I have a beautiful little dog. I have an incredible community and a whole team helping me through social media and my new website to make sure that my guided meditation series that goes with the phases of the moon to align us with nature's rhythms, my intuition course on developing your own intuition one step at a time, online with me. Other offerings I have all make it to the people that want to know how to tap into their own higher knowing to lead their lives in leadership, especially to make impact in the world. When people meet me and they experience the gift I have of being able to see and talk to their spirit guides and angels and give them very specific instructions about their moment-to-moment challenges and what to do next in their life and business, the first thing they say to me is, "Oh, this is real. I mean, this is not just vague information. This is very real." And the very next question they ask me is, "When did this begin for you?" And over 2 decades, I told the story so many times that everything in me knew I needed to write it down. And it was an epic tale of being guided through many countries with a lot of unknowns to go find things that seemed impossible to find. And the whole book of my memoir is what came pouring out of me. Each chapter is an experiment I did on intuition. Is intuition real? Are psychics real? Are past lives real? Do we all have spirit guides? All of these questions get answered in the narrative of my memoir. So that was the first book I published. The next one is called Living from Inner Clarity. And it was a potent handbook that you could read in about 4 hours of the best I had learned from the 20 years of working with intuition in a scientific way to solve real daily life and leadership problems. It explains from a physics point of view, because I'm a scientist, how reality works and how we can use our conscious intention to change our beliefs and change our reality in ways that work on a moment to moment. You can validate it that very next day when you get an answer that really answers what your heart was calling for in the ways I describe in the book. And then the next one is called Surfing Tsunamis of Change, a handbook for change agents. And this is based on my master's thesis in sustainable urban planning and development about how to create change from anywhere you are. If you're a change agent in your family, in your personal life, in your work, if you're a major leader, it works for everyone. There's 30 axioms about how everyone can take a problem that seems overwhelming and systemic and that you can't possibly make it happen, and what you can do in your sphere that could end up influencing the big picture. So that's a handbook for people that are seeking to understand and make change on any level. And then the book that just published, The Divine Feminine in Business, is based on my PhD research. When I was creating one of the first sustainability consulting firms in the world in Hawaii, that focused on teaching students how to energy audit their schools so they could take the money and invest it in green roofs, that kind of thing. We're doing some incredible new work. And I found out that there is a certification to really claim that you are focusing on social and environmental in every aspect of your business, called B Corp. That's really hard and rigorous to get. I got that certification and found out thousands of others had too. So I went around the world and interviewed many of these leaders and found out that a lot of us had figured out some pretty amazing things, that if everyone knew what we knew, they could make that kind of business too, one that really changes things for people on the planet. And so everything I discovered is in that potent handbook. And one of the biggest surprises for me was how much the answers all came down to merging the masculine and feminine together. And that the feminine had been squeezed out in so much of leadership and business and even in home life that it had become too masculine. And masculine isn't a problem, but too masculine is a problem, as is too feminine when they're both together. Intuition and intellect, inner knowing and emotional knowing and mental knowing, planning and emergence. When all of these things are allowed to have their place and work together, the best result happens. So that's what the fourth book was about.
Wow, what a spiritual journey you've been on. How fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about intuition in leadership. How do you guide individuals and organizations to incorporate intuition in decision making?
Beautiful. I have a company I'm creating right now, and I have a team, staff. Whenever we have a new idea, let's launch a campaign for Galentine's Day on February 13th. We all close our eyes and we feel into what it feels like when we hold that idea, that future. We go to the future of that moment and we hold it in our bodies, and we all feel into where we feel it in our bodies until we have a clear signal. Then we open our eyes, we wait till everyone's eyes are open, and then we go around in a circle and we say, I felt tightness in my throat. And then we talk about what it felt like. It felt like I'm don't know what to say. And then the next person will say, I feel lit up. My heart blew open. I felt crowds and women across the world going, Valentine's Day, this new campaign that opens my heart. We each say our thing. And then when we finish saying it, we look at it and we go, okay, if we actually really focus first on what we're going to say in the campaign, how does your throat feel? And she'll say, it goes away. My throat clears if we focus first on what we're going to say, what the message is. And so we're like, okay, let's make that the top priority. And then we go to the next thing until everyone's bodies are clear.
Wow.
So it's not a vote, yes, no. It's a nuanced exploration of the inner intelligence, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I got an image, I got downloads. I would say, look, at my system feels more relaxed if we launch this in April, but then I feel the emptiness in the room. I don't feel a crowd. I don't feel anyone receiving it. So it might be easier, but it's not, the timing it's going to be too late. We're going to miss the wave, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can just imagine working in an environment like that, where you're really being taught how to harness a very unique skill
Yes.
that not many people remember how to use. We all know how to do it, but we just don't remember how to use it and how to use it almost in everyday decision making.
Right.
So that's fascinating.
I love that you use the word remember, as if
Yeah.
this is something that's new and we're making up and just some of us have, which of course we know isn't real. We're not the only animal without instinct. We
Yes.
just developed cognition and we use it to override it rather than work with it.
So, what are the biggest challenges that women face in leadership today? And how can we foster a more inclusive environment for female leaders?
You know, what instantly comes to me is the hidden ways patriarchy still dismisses us and our, different wisdom. And I say hidden because I work with a lot of, almost all my clients are probably in the most powerful women in the world category. Director level at the biggest companies of the world, designing new divisions of the UN. Really.
Wow.
And they still, even though they're the most progressive women in the world and, have a partner and have other leaders around them that celebrate them being a woman leader, in all our sessions, we find the hidden ways they're still being dismissed and not listened to, and that their knowing says we can't do it at this time, but the other way of that's the plan, we got to stick to it, wins. So when women that are, in their 50s and 60s at these levels have been for 40 years successful, they've learned, even if they've never even thought of the word intuition, they've learned what it feels like inside when something is about to happen that's not right. And they know it, and they try to use it in these high-level leadership places, and it doesn't work.
Wow.
Because they don't have a spreadsheet to back it up.
Yeah, so it's that evidence, the hard evidence that people need to see, the figures, the facts.
Right. And a lot of masculine leaders, men like gender identifying men, they will say, if they say, I just know it, it's my gut instinct, they're listened to. But if a woman says that, it's not the same.
So how do you help female leaders to balance intuition with the analytical demands of business leadership?
I love this. Intellect and intuition is the two halves of my world that I'm bringing together all the time. I always say that you have a memory or a recent experience that you know that you knew, and I get them to go into that experience and what does it feel like in your body, and I like, tell me a time you knew that you knew but you didn't know how, and they said, when I bought that house, when I went on that trip, when I fired that person. Like, they have that thing, and I'm like, let's slow down, really slow, and walk all. And what happened? They were like, oh, my shoulders went back, my stomach relaxed, I didn't have bad dreams that night. Like, they have a memory of it. And I'm like, how does that feel when you try on this thing that's being proposed? And they're like, the opposite. My whole system is shutting down, I'm clenching, I'm starting to have bad dreams again. And I'm like, okay, so you're getting the signals. So now that your intuition is telling you this isn't the way, now bring your mind to it. Why?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quite interesting, because we've all had these experiences. I don't think there's anybody who can say they've never just had that gut feel that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And when they trusted it, they found out they were right.
Yeah.
So it's like a muscle that you have to use. And the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And the stronger it gets, the more you use it, correct?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely. And I have such weird and diverse degrees: mechanical engineering, sustainable urban planning, political science, and economics. I did a postdoc in neuroscience because I really wanted to know what's going on in the brain. And really, truly, we have the biology to use this. And if you've ever heard of the TED Talk called Stroke of Insight, is a
Yes,
neuroscientist. Do you know this?
I've watched it. Yeah, I love that TED Talk.
Yeah.
It
She's a
touches a lot on everything you're saying.
It's true. And as a scientist, whenever people don't really realize this, I've deeply studied the history of science. Most scientists come to discoveries through intuition, and then they go into the lab. And sometimes it's 100, 200 years later before the lab ability even catches up to testing what they've been knowing for a long time. So I've been having these experiences, and then science would bring something forward. And I go, oh, that's proving what I'm experiencing. When I saw a stroke of insight, and it was a neuroscientist who had a stroke that shut off her analytical brain and which didn't actually turn on the other part of her. It left it available to be experienced. Yeah.
So how does sustainability intersect with your teachings on business leadership? And why is it essential for modern organizations?
Absolutely. I had zero interest in the economy. I was all about the infrastructure as an engineer in the built environment of urban planning. And I just was like, we need to just do the systems better. And then I realized, oh my gosh, we have all the answers. We know how to build cities sustainably. We know renewable energy. We have them all. We don't implement them. Why? It's political will. So then I went into political science and was like, how do we open the systems to actually implement the solutions we have? And then I realized the things that using up most of the energy and exploiting most of the people is actually business. It's like all roads led to if we fix it's almost like we fix the economy. It's the economy, stupid. Like it hovers around as it's the thing that if we can all go to work and create and make money in ways that actually serve people and the planet, not only are we healthier and happier, but we don't suck up the resources and we bring consciousness to all layers of it, everything will get better.
Yes.
So I really focused myself on that. And then working with leaders, if I can work with 100 of the top leaders in the world that turn around and influence $1 billion, revenue, et cetera, it actually can create some incredible impact. Business moves more money around than countries do.
True.
It's like the most powerful force on earth.
Wow. So what significant challenges have you encountered in your work and how did you overcome them?
Right. I would say for me, anytime I do something new, I don't know if you were like this is my way. Every time I do something new, it goes horribly wrong the first time, or maybe the first 3 times. And then I figure it out and I make new changes. So every single time I would elevate to a new level of using my intuition with business leaders, I would meet someone that didn't get it, didn't understand it, no matter how much I explained or tried to work with them. And then I'd sit back and go, I need a leader who feels like their time with me is the best time and money they ever spent. And the needle moves so radically that we both realize a miracle happened. And that was, so soon as I set that intention, all of a sudden, those were the leaders I was working with. So for me, the biggest challenge is stumbling into a new arena, royally getting it wrong and messy, not liking it at all, but using that as design parameters of my will getting focused of what I'm willing to show up for. And that becomes a magnet for who I'm supposed to work with and what I'm supposed to do. So I've always been about stumbling towards the new design because it's so emergent. There's no manual for this. No one can train me for this. But I can use my decisions of what I'm experiencing to decide what I'm willing to use my life force for. And then that just comes in and then we create incredible impact together. So I think the challenge is a willingness to fail, a willingness to not be perfect, and willingness to go on the experiment and find out and then iterate fast.
Wow. So can you share a success story where your approach to leadership brought profound change to an individual or an organization?
Sure, I'd love to. Of course, I'm in NDAs with everyone. These are very high level people, but I feel like I can share this story very openly. There was a woman that came to me who worked for one of the biggest, you could say it's housing. We'll just go with housing industries in the world and companies in the housing industry. And she really knew that she was supposed to do something philanthropic with the billions that they had. And it was her job to do so at a global level. And she was really stuck on what to do with it. And I said, you work in housing. It's very clear that it would be about helping with the homeless. What's the problem? And she was like, oh, I can't do that. And that led into, let's find, her angels came and said, we have to do a healing. And the healing was that when she was younger, her daughter had run away when she was a teenager and become homeless. And so she had never opened that wound. And as we were able to go into the heart of it and I was able to take her through techniques of breathing and staying with the body while that pain that had never been dealt with came to the surface. She wanted to run from it. She wanted to look away from it. She wanted to put not billions of dollars from the company towards it. She wanted it to not exist. And we said, let's let it exist in this safe time and space now. And I'm going to stay with you while we feel what that felt like and while you say the words and scream the screams and do what you need to do. And she had such a cleansing, such an eruption. And then her angel said, your daughter was always going to leave the moment that you asked her to do anything. And she said the only day that we ever asked her to do anything is the day she ran away.
Wow.
And I said, she chose you as parents because you would take the longest to do that than her other options. You actually did the best service for her. And she was elated. And she went and started the division for the homeless and moved a lot of money globally towards that.
Are you serious? And this all came from a personal experience.
Always, always. I've worked with hundreds of people in so many cultures, 25 countries, every religion, every walk of life. And it is always a belief deep inside that got formed from a traumatic or a normalization or something they thought was right from what they saw in their culture, their parents, that formed a belief that's limiting something now at a big scale. It was small when they were young, but now that they're in charge of a lot of people and a lot of money and a lot of power, it's causing big blocks, big problems.
Wow. That's pretty profound.
Yeah.
So what lessons have you learned from setbacks?
Setbacks. Interesting. Okay, great. Well, I would say that they're part of life. They're the mud on the road. It's actually helps you grow. I always say trauma is the doorway to purpose. Challenges are the path to growth. So for me, setbacks are like, ooh, I wonder what this is about. I mean, of course, when I was younger, I was like, I don't want this setback. What did I do wrong? But now at 51, I'm like, oh, this isn't going easily or well. I wonder why. There's like so learning to stop and slow down and go, this crunchy spot isn't something to plow through, but it's something to get intimate with.
Wow.
This isn't a problem. This is a guidepost. This is a manual for what I want.
And you know what's interesting is you're right. Setbacks are just part of the process. They're just the stepping stones to get you there.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when people encounter setbacks, they get paralyzed. They don't even know where to go next. But it's all about how you frame it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up. They're just stepping stones or guides. If it's going the wrong way, there's your setback.
Yeah. And I feel like we have not a lot of training, if at all, about what to do when it feels really bad and when it feels overwhelming, except for to plow forward and keep going. And no one ever says, oh, you're having it hard right now. Let's slow way down. And I'm going to give you all the time and space you need to feel everything you're feeling. And where's that in school and childhood, teen years and work, right? It's like, how can you do as much as possible without ever even acknowledging it? So it's almost like if there's anything I could share with the world for my work is you can do that for yourself. You can say, I'm going to turn all the way towards it instead of away. And it always feels like it's going to go forever and it's going to destroy you. But my experience in the neuroscience says that if you really go into a painful feeling, no matter how bad it is, and I've had it bad, I've had grief, I've had all the things, it only lasts 4 to 7 minutes.
And then you get on the other side of that.
It starts to break. And there's a transformation. So when you go into the heart of it, there's a transformation. When you skirt around it and avoid it, it stays there festering.
Okay. You have to move through it.
Yeah.
So awakening our divine potential is at the heart of your mission. How do you help people connect with this aspect of themselves?
Beautiful. Geez, I feel like almost all my answers are slowing down. Being with what's coming up, feeling the body, hearing the words you want to scream inside, but you stifle, but instead screaming them into a pillow or saying them out loud to your best friend. I just feel like the more conscious presence we have with the reality of the nuanced landscape of our journey, letting all those feelings and all those thoughts be included and seen in our own time and our own way with ourselves is a natural doorway to clearing the system from the outside voices and the things we stifle and all the things that can clog our system. And every time we pay attention to it and let it go, and it clears, and then it just organically happens. You start to feel the divine. It's like we were always meant to be in that connection, but we just cover it and cloud it. And when we untether ourselves, what's left is this natural connection that every animal has on earth. We have it too. We just have minds.
Our minds get in the way. My last two questions are a bit of a time experiment. If I could take you back to go and meet the younger you, the young woman who was in business, was seeing something that was wrong in her workplace, didn't know what to do to bring about change. Just in case there's someone who's listening to this podcast right now, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give her based on what life has taught you up until this point?
Beautiful question. Thank you. I would say to her, there's a path that brought you to where you are that you're not happy about. And in every way, don't look outside of yourself, look inside of yourself. And mine the inventory of your lived experiences of what made you happy along your life and what is bringing the world that you want and what is the work that you've done that you really, really love. And take an inventory of that and write down everything that you don't like and that you don't want to be part of in what's being created in the world that you don't enjoy. And look at those 2 lists and make them design parameters for the rest of your life. You don't want to do this and you do want to do this, and then take that information that you've gotten from your own unique lived experience and only then go to mentors and job possibilities and moving countries and finding a new partner, and make sure that what you welcome in each step of the way matches up more of this. If you're feeling expansiveness rather than collapse, you're going in the right direction. And just know that you can keep evolving that as you learn more and more. So you're always creating your best life in a way that's actually doing things for the things you care about. So I would just say take deep inventory yourself and keep that in mind with every outside voice that you turn to, and know that you actually have the answers inside more than anyone. And they can help inform you, but they can't guide you the way that you can guide yourself.
Oh, I absolutely love that. My last question, I'm taking you into the future, and we are going to go and sit with the 80-year-old you. And you are sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, your partner, whoever is with you at the end. If we could teleport into the future to have a conversation with this wise woman who's led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I've been waiting to be you. I have been looking forward to being that age my whole life. I feel like I prize wisdom and lived experience above pretty much everything. And I'm just going to be so happy to have lived the life I've lived and seen what I've seen. And to really know that the whole way, every step, I stayed true to myself. I focused on love, and I made sure everything I did was making things better for people on the planet. And with that just comes magic and love and beautiful connections and happenstance and magical invitations and synchronicities that astound and transformational healing out of nowhere. The beauty and the magic is unprecedented when you live that way. And I'm going to look into her eyes, and she's going to have been living the majority of her life that way. And I want to see what those eyes look like.
Absolutely beautiful. Sophia, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom with our community.
Thank you, Gertrude. This has been a delight. I love your questions. It's been so beautiful to be able to share this with your community. So thank you again.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, to empower you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again, Sophia.
Thank you, Gertrude.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep